Ooh, that's super dark. Well, I'll turn on one more light. I didn't want to make it too bright in here. I'm haggard. I'm kind of tired. I've been sick for a couple days, and I don't really want to be in bright lights right now. I look like shit, feel like shit. But I'm actually feeling pretty good this afternoon, this evening, and I decided to make a video just to talk about a few random things on my mind. Not never sure where to start, but I think that this video would be more of just kind of one of them, evening after dark chat type videos. I did take some notes over here for something I wanted to talk about in a separate video, but as for this one, I really just want to kind of talk about art and inspiration and compare as much as I can the metaphors of life, kind of seize the day type attitude. And that means so much more to me. It seize the moment, but what that means is, in my mind, is when your emotions will ebb and flow. It's difficult to pin down. If you want to feel good at a certain time, then it's very difficult to attain that. If you want to regularly feel a certain way at a certain time of day. For example, you want to have energy and be motivated and focused when you're at work. But when you're at home, you want to be able to relax. Then let's say you have to switch shifts, and you find it hard because you end up, in your normal home time, you have to be at work, and your internal clock doesn't work. Well, then we have things like coffee, stimulants and whatnot that help to keep people awake, and they do their best. And then perhaps the opposite problem, they have insomnia of some type and can't sleep. But harnessing feeling good at the times that we feel good is also a big issue. So what I mean is being able to utilize the sleep when we need it, to be able to utilize energy when we need it, and to be able to maximize the amount of bliss that we have in life. Because ultimately that's always the biggest question. How much bliss can a human attain without overdoing it, without overloading themselves? Because if the bar is right here, and you start to feel good all the time, then the bar is going to be raised. And when that bar is raised, you're going to have to live up to a higher lifestyle. I mean, I've seen this happen to people because I know it's happened to me. And when you're doing good and you're making good money, then you can feel great about life. You can buy all kinds of extra things, and then you start to realize, wait a minute, I have to maintain this lifestyle. And this is why so many people who are rich are neurotic, because they just don't know what to do. They've got all this money, they can do all these fun things, and I'm not talking about all rich people. I'm just saying that a lot of people who become wealthy become a little bit, at the very least, it can cause depression, in the sense of not knowing who a person's true friends are, and who they can trust. But also not having anything to attain. I think that's a more important point than the trust factor with friends and family. And I guess I'm using the example of being rich because I am rich in certain ways, but it has nothing to do with money. I'm rich in family. I have a great family. And I've had a pretty good life, having nothing to do, once again, with money whatsoever. But I've just always had pretty good people in my life. And of course I've been stolen from, robbed from, I've been to jail. I've had all kinds of problems in my life, but I don't dwell on those. I look at the positives, the things that I've actually, I've had that are good, because ultimately that's what life is, experiences. And the more blissful experiences we have, the happier we can be in the back of our mind. And then I'll ask myself, am I really blissful? Or am I creating a delusion? And at that point, I just put it out of my mind. It does not fucking matter. And this is something I guess that I wanted to really explain was, it's the discussion, say, with people who are of particular religions. This is why I don't scoff and poke fun at people who are Christians, Muslims, whatever your religion might be. I'm not going to fault somebody for it, even though I've already looked into the history of religions. I've compared religions and looked at the similarities and seen that there is a structure and a hidden underlying archetype and a story and metaphors that could be read to really help a human and maybe even explain some of our past. But I'm talking about the people who believe everything literally, let's say Bible literalists, where they want to believe every word verbatim, which means you usually have to be told by your pastor how to interpret certain, and that's why they have Bible studies, and Bible interpretations, and it's because they want to be able to tell you what it means. And I guess in my mind, it should be self-evident, I guess, but I don't fault people for falling into this belief system of cut and dry, black and white. This is it. There's good and here's evil. I see things on such a more complex level than that, but because I've chosen to. And that's my choice. Because with complexity comes its own set of rewards and its own set of, negatives as well. I mean, the more you think about something, the more time it takes to analyze life and really philosophize about it, and if I were to just take a belief system, it would eliminate probably half of the things I think about. I wouldn't have to think about them anymore. But I guess I would always ask myself, if I was a Christian, let's say, does the average Christian question themselves about those types of things? And I don't know, because I don't know individuals, but I know that becoming deluded, which is my point, and I'm not saying Christians are all deluded, I'm saying creating a belief system that works for you, even in the face of mounting evidence against it, whether it be religious, political, or otherwise, isn't going to be a natural tendency for humans. We want that because we want to be able to be part of something, but more importantly, we want to believe that we have some answers in this crazy, wild, short life. Because being conscious in itself is amazing. We don't realize how much of it we're actually programmed, by our surroundings. If we were feral children, right? I'm having a cider tonight. Oh, it's so good. I haven't had a cider in a while. It's so tasty. Let me make sure my camera is still rolling. Yep. All right, when I looked at it, it was 7:19. I find that pretty funny because it was something I was going to mention when I started this video that I forgot about. That I look at 7:19 every day on the clock in the evening, and that's usually the time I get motivated and have energy to do things. It's really weird. I start feeling hungry, motivated, like I don't generally get an appetite throughout the day. Then all of a sudden in the evening, I'll eat a bunch of food and then maybe even have a beer or not, or, well, not a beer, but I'm having a cider. I might get focused and into some project that might last into the evening hours. And, in years past, I'd be out doing carpentry until I felt like I was making too much noise. I didn't want to piss the neighbors off, but for a while my garage has been closed. I haven't been doing any woodwork in quite a while. Like I mentioned, the meditation benches that I was making, I spent a couple $100 on wood, made a few of them, and then I've spent more money on my art projects than I've ever got back, and that's, I guess, the sign of art itself. You're not doing it for the money. But in this case, I thought it would be a cool product to sell. Actually, I was looking and digging through my something I forgot to mention on my art video the other day was the variety of different, like, drawing and, I love building out of just about anything. I'll make stacks of leaves or rocks in the woods, or on a beach. I just love to create things, even if I know they're going to be annihilated. And I'm mostly inspired by the mandalas, that they create in the Buddhist temples, and they'll spend weeks or months on some of these things, and just laying little tiny bit of sand out at a time. A very long process, and then in the end they just sweep it away. And it's the sign of temporal, that everything is temporary. But I painted this one today, and I'm not finished yet. I actually only had just this inner part done up to, I think, just up to the yellow ring here. And then I started adding these swirls and tying it in because I was feeling inspired. I was actually inspired by my wife, who she's been wanting to paint for a long time, and she just started just painting, you know. We've got a bunch of watercolors and acrylics, and that's acrylic there. I have really crappy brushes and pretty cheap paints, but it doesn't matter because to me it's about creating. And I was thinking, why are my pictures so angular and blocky? I like it that way. It's because I realized that I'm influenced by painting as a carpenter. I used to paint the insides of buildings and stuff like that, and I do really detailed trim, and that gave me kind of I don't know, a thing about edges, I guess, whereas a lot of painting is like blending and shading and stuff. So, but I also do, you know, this, of course, the blending and shading. This is one that I did, like, I don't even remember. I just found it in the pile. I did this maybe 6 months ago, I think, something like that. And it's just, well, I'm not going to try to explain it. It's all metaphoric shit, but anyway. What else did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about Kratom, but I'm going to make a separate video for that because it just deserves its own videos. I think that's about it. Being sick and all kind of sucks. I notice it makes me a little bit impatient maybe with my kids, you know. God, they're so annoying when your like ears hurt and they're being loud, and you find yourself snapping a little bit more, and that's how I know when I'm not feeling well. It's funny when it's coming on. Like I started sneezing the other day. I'm like, why am I getting sick now? You know, it's not like I haven't taken care of myself lately, but it just happens. It just doesn't care. Like the times when I feel like I'm doing the best, all of a sudden, I get sick. Yeah, it's weird. Life is weird. Anyway, I'll talk to you all later. Have a wonderful day. Whatever you're doing, and